and I can see what level the tide is at, but I can't always establish whether the tide is coming in or going out. But I know whether it's high or low, or halfway in or halfway out. And then depending on sometimes you can hear the sea when it's a little bit on the rough side, or when the weather is very quiet, you can hear the sea from the side of Cardigan Island. We never hear it from Cabourg side because there's a bank between us. But then you look out to Cardigan Bay, and sometimes you can see the coastline going up Aberystwyth up to Aberdyfi and beyond. Sometimes see the mountains when it's clear. It's quite peculiar. Sometimes it'll be clear over the land, but not over the sea, and the other way around at other times. So it's pretty much always different when you look out, and conditions change quite quickly during the day. And in the summer we have sea fog, which can hamper, even stop harvesting on some days, even though the weather is glorious, and the sea fog will come in and dampen the hay or whatever. But it doesn't happen often, not every year, or not every, just the odd day now and again. They say the sea mist is beneficial for the crops on the other side of the coin when it's very, very dry. A day of sea fog will be better than a day of sunshine. But you're not in control of any of that, so you just have to take whatever comes and moan about it. or if it's good, well, it's great. Yeah. Never done anything with the sea, never taken any part in being out on the sea or with the lifeboat people. Many of my neighbours have taken active part in that, but being an incomer to the area, I never, and always with lots of animals to look after, you didn't have time to take things off the farm. But you often have the helicopter or the sea rescue call. You hear the sirens or something going, so you know there's somebody in trouble. I do remember when somebody was killed at Poppit in the lightning storm, and actually my mother walked down through the fields to the chapel that day, and we fetched her by car. But when we were around the sheep the next day, there was 2 sheep dead on the sheep walk that she'd actually walked down through the field. So that was something we'll always remember. Lightning and storms can be quite frightening. Even out the trees, we have a tree just in front of the house that was knocked by lightning 30 years ago, and it just dies from the top down. Yeah. So when you're living out on the land, it's the weather that plays the most important part. It's the much more important part than the news and maybe the financial markets and stuff like that. Although they have an effect on agricultural commodities, but it's the weather that's predominantly everything that's the first thing you either look out for on your computer now, but or used to listen to the Sunday weather, farming weather. Yeah, and I guess that will never change. Weather will be the number one thing when you've got livestock or crops, really. But with livestock, you often have to go out into the weather, whatever the weather is, to bring them to safety or bring them to a shelter spot or find very often now that we have to listen when there's a forecast of the storm. We have to do all the work we need to do a day in advance of the storm, so that the animals are properly fed and are in the right location. So on the day of a storm, which can be 70 miles an hour or higher, it's not safe to be outside on these exposed banks. So you just have to sit indoors and get on with your paperwork on a day like that.
Well, I wasn't born on this farm, but I was born on a farm, so I think I've always liked just off the farmyard, around the back of the old sheds and things, where you as a little boy, with the dog, you'd get up to something that you shouldn't, out of sight, but and then working with the animals and the sheep. Always had sheep on the farm, and cattle as well, a little on the way of pigs, but yeah, livestock has always been what you do all year round. Some crops in the harvesting in the autumn and things, but mainly it's the sheep. Na beth sydd wedi llunio fwyaf o bywyd yw anifeiliaid, a edrych ar ei ôl yr anifeiliaid a gweithio gyda nhw. Mae bob blwyddyn yn waniaeth tywydd, chi'n gweithio gyda'r tywydd. Dim pwynt gweithio lot yn ei erbyn bydd y stoc ddim yn gwneud y cystel. I tywydd gwael y bethau, yn wedig yn y lle ma nawr. Mae'n mwy agored, mae'r gorfod ffeindio cysgod i'r anifeiliaid ifanc neu lloiau neu i'r wyn. It's more intensive than it's been. You have to keep more animals and look after more animals to make a living off the land. The land perhaps is more productive now than it was before, especially with keeping the manure levels and things and the lime levels high. You get good grass growth and good cropping, and it's in a good lowland area. So Pembrokeshire is renowned for its pastures and its cropping areas. Generally you get good crops, so you're fairly well off if you're lucky enough to have a decent time at harvest to get the crops in, and the winters aren't too long, they're pretty severe, with especially more storms and more rainfall in the last 2 or 3 years as well in the winter. But then the summer comes and you forget it. Yeah, the summers are really good. Well, not that they're good in the fact that we get a decent, always get decent haymaking weather, but now there's silage and the silage bales with the wrapping. Makes harvesting a lot easier, but of course you have to dispose of the wrap and things, so that's an added problem which we didn't have with hay. But that's how things are. Things evolve.
Yeah, all my life has been spent on a farm, so as soon as I entered my primary school, you'd be living in a rural area. You'd be make friends with other farm children, and it will all be about farming. You'd help your parents as a toddler. You'd get out in the way perhaps, but you'd always be there working with stock, with dogs, with sheep and cattle. So you be part of your family team looking after the animals, and then you'd have local vets and local people coming to help. At the harvest, it was much more of a team. You'd remember when local people would come on Saturdays to help on the farm. That doesn't happen so much now, although after the COVID, some people do want farming experience and hands-on experience on working with animals, and as opposed to doing all computer work, and so we might be able to redress the balance, and it's good to give the experience to some young people so that they actually know where their food and how they deal with animals, and from day to day. It's not all easy and not all pleasing to the eye, because you have animals that they have to be put down, animals that have fractures, or animals that go blind, all different kinds of problems. Some things that can be turned around and helped, some things that can't. You also have some diseases that come in. We've not experienced, lucky in my lifetime, I haven't experienced the foot and mouth problem. It's 20 years since the last outbreak in Wales, and it was heartbreaking for the farmers and people involved to lose stock. We've lost a lot of stock to TB, which is another long-standing problem in cattle, and we are testing in this area. Pembrokeshire is, I believe that has taken a very hard hit. Pembrokeshire has been a hotspot area perhaps because of the high density of animals in the area. But the stress is caused by continuous testing is discouraging farmers to keep animals, and perhaps there's an imbalance in the number of sheep that are kept in Wales, and even in Pembrokeshire. Pembrokeshire wasn't renowned for keeping many sheep, more renowned for tucking sheep from the hill areas in the winter, on the lush pastures, and then cropping in the summer. But it's a good growing season, and rapid growth in Pembrokeshire. The light is fantastic, and the weather is favourable for agriculture. So no matter what the policies will be, I think agriculture will be do well in Pembrokeshire. As a child, I lived probably 25 miles from the sea, but I recall going to Carmarthenshire Beach, Llansteffan, and would probably be equidistant to Llangrannog, Cwm Tiddy, or possibly places like that on the Cardiganshire coast. But as a child, I don't think prior to moving down to Cardigan, I'd never been in Cardigan, which was only about 25 miles away, but I hadn't been in Cardigan more than 4 times before my 18th birthday. But and it seemed quite far away, and well, Cardigan is quite remote in that it's best part of an hour from Carmarthen, and 2 hours from the bridge. So then the Sil was more centralised. You get Carmarthen or anywhere you needed to go. So that was perhaps one of the reasons. Used to be a cattle market in Cardigan. That's been a great loss. We lost that about 18 months ago, and my personal view is that a land farm is worth considerably less without a local market, and we do miss it a lot because it's much more time consuming to travel further, even if prices might be slightly higher now, but it's the time element. Time is so valuable. You're away from the farm. Cardigan was a Monday morning market, and you'll be back on the farm for 11 o'clock. But now it takes a greater part of the day to go, and it's possible that with going to a Carmarthen market in future, that will be take you almost a whole day to get there and stay and sell and come back. So it's one of the reasons perhaps why we're very disappointed with losing our local market in Cardigan. And on the estuary there was 2 fields of second early potatoes grown in the plastic in the latter years, but that's 20 years ago. So when the Greeblands started up and they wanted to put polytunnels and there was opposition, you felt that they were hard done, because there's probably always been green cropping farms, and the tradition going back to mixed farming, where you had a small farm and they'd have a green crop and they would sell cabbages and leeks and stuff to the maybe St Dogmell's or to the milkman, and he would deliver things around. We can't blame Tesco's, but Tesco's, when they came to Cardigan, everybody, whoa, that's the easiest thing since sliced bread, wasn't it? Buy everything in Tesco. And Aldi, great, but they seem to be overdoing it with sugar and salt. But so it's still best to buy local and support local, but that's on a very small scale compared to so much of the economy going out of the area. If you go into Cardigan today and spend £100, how much of it will stay in Cardigan? I had to go for a spare part today to Blaenannerch this morning, and for some reason I cut down past, turn in by the Tesco junction, and it's busy there, but I came down past Aldi, and because Aldi's been shut for 5 days or something, they've done something new there, and I could see there's people queuing outside to go in. I thought, that's not me. But no, and in fairness, you see, we've got. I said it in my consultation to the people to Ceredigion. They should be giving all the backing they can to Greeblands, because they're growing a multitude of different crops, and people can learn so much from them. It's not an easy job. It's going back again to the specialising, growing one crop, like on a farm, or keeping just sheep. Very easy to keep all sheep on the farm. You just need a dog and a quad bike and a few things. But if you've got a mixed farm where you've got green crop and you've got barley, you've got oats, and you've got different crops, maybe potatoes, and you've got sheep, you've got pigs and cattle and milk as well. And that's a mixed farm, but it needs much more labour input and quite often more machinery input and stuff as well.
Well, again, it's to do with the weather. You can't do anything against the weather. You have to wait for the like they used to say in this area, they said ploughing in January, because it's stony ground, and the old boys would say the stones will move if you try ploughing in April, when of course it's a lot different now, because you've really got high horsepower tractors, whereas 30 years ago perhaps you'd have a 2-wheel drive tractor and a 3-furrow plough, and you'd have to do it when the conditions are good, as opposed to now you've got such power at your disposal that you can go ploughing any time of year. But and certainly before that, with horses, you would have to work closer to the land and with the weather than you did than you do now. So yeah, that's the land is very, very honest. It won't give a good crop unless you only get out what you put in. And if you overdo the artificial fertilizer, you'll get one big crop, and then the next crop will be very poor. So you can't cheat the land. You just have to maintain levels of fertility, and then you stand a good chance. They used to say a fallowed field, a rested field gives a wonderful crop, but the old rotations that people have, I don't recall very much of that, but there used to be a rotation, a 5 or a 6 year rotation, where you'd have perhaps oats, kirch and barley for 1 or 2 years, followed by barley, and then back into grass again for 2 or 3 years. So you'd have a rotation of that, and one of the field would be left fallow for half a year or 1 year, but that tendency has all gone. I guess the supermarkets have put so much pressure on the prices that you have to have one crop or even 2 crops every year from a field. But it's a high input system then. Mixed farming offers better scope for fertility and stuff for the farm, but like I said, the pressure on the prices and the big companies and the banks have all instigated that everybody should specialize in maybe 1 or 2 enterprises on the farm, as opposed to there used to be a mixed farm of things, going back to the rotation and stuff like that. Yeah. So definitely can't cheat the land. Just work with it. And of course, there's every field is different, and the facing of the land, and the gradient, and the altitude. Every farm is different. Some farms are more efficient and low-lying. Have been living on a farm where we had many meadows, which flooded every year. That proved quite a problem in the spring and the autumns with the floods, for crops and for young animals. But whereas this farm now in Pembrokeshire is more open to the elements, and bottom half of the farm is suitable for grazing, and the top half of the farm is completely exposed, no trees, just gorse and on the hedgerows. But it grows good crops in a short season, good growth from April and May onwards, but not exceedingly early. Pembrokeshire is renowned for many areas of Pembrokeshire are renowned for early grass production and potato production. So because of the favourable weather.
In cider vinegar, you leave them in for 5 days, I think, and then you strain it, and then I had a big saucepan. I had about 2 litres of this, well, more, and then you boil it. I got the whole thing, and then don't think there's any garlic or anything like that in it. There's cinnamon in it, cinnamon and cloves, and then there's you add a pot or 2 of honey. Yeah, I've done it. Well, the first year I did it was 214, and I had some of that left last year, but all that's gone now. And I did some in 218, but this is 220 stuff. But I think I've still got, but it lasts all right. Herbs and fruit and stuff. I'd miss the produce to do these remedies or to do these home preserves. And quite a few of my neighbours still is. She does lots of her, collects her own stuff, and because the air quality is so good, isn't it? You know, you rightly or wrongly, you don't really need to wash anything. You just put all the goodness in, whether it's rose hips or whether it's elderberry or blackberries, apples. Once if you survive, you're immune to everything, except old age. That's creeping up.